Look closely at this floor. Read white Carrara marble, imported directly from the sun-drenched quarries of Italy, costing $300 per square foot. To the elite billionaires dining here under the warm glow of crystal chandeliers, a single liquid stain on this surface is a minor domestic tragedy. To Richard, the ruthless, impeccably tailored general manager of the Aurum, oh poor person, stepping onto this pristine floor is an unforgivable corporate sin. Right now, a steaming bowl of wild mushroom truffle soup is cascading down the hunched, fragile back of an old woman. She wears a faded, torn, canvas jacket patched with rough gray thread. Her hands are deeply calloused, permanently stained with the black grease of discarded soda cans. Thick, dark brown liquid seeps into the ancient fabric of her collar, burning her skin. The elite diners in their tailored suits and silk gowns freeze in absolute shock, their silver forks suspended in midair. This is the exact millisecond a man in power chose to treat a fellow human being like disposable garbage. Yet, what Richard does not know, his arrogant mind cannot possibly comprehend, is that this very floor, this entire multi-million-dollar building, and the golden land beneath it belongs entirely to her. The mind of a cynic only understands the value of a price tag, never the value of a soul. To comprehend how a multimillionaire matriarch ended up wearing rags and picking plastic bottles from gutters, we must force the clock to turn backward. 10 long grueling years earlier. Mrs. Martha Vance was not always the silent scrap queen of the city's poorest slums. A decade ago, the Vance family name was whispered with immense respect in the highest rooms of old money. They owned the sprawling industrial shipyards along the Western Harbor, and the most valuable, untouched commercial real estate in the central business district. They were a family built on quiet elegance, refusing to flash massive logos or host extravagant galas for press coverage. But betrayal is a shadow that loves the light of prosperity. A sudden, catastrophic financial fraud executed by an international banking syndicate shook the core of their global holdings. Stress was a physical blow to Martha's husband, who suffered a fatal stroke at his desk before the sun could rise. In a single year, mounting debts piled high like an oncoming avalanche. Martha Vance was left standing alone in the ruins of an empire with her orphaned 5-year-old granddaughter, Lily. Elite. Most elite families would have declared bankruptcy, shifting the burden to shield their private luxury assets while leaving hundreds of loyal workers penniless. But Martha Vance possessed a spine forged in old-world honor. So she systematically liquidated every single active business asset, every piece of family jewelry, every private luxury vehicle. She did this to ensure every single docker, mechanic, and clerk received their full, rightful severance pay. When the dust settled, she was left with nothing but a single, massive, undeveloped plot of dirt in the heart of the commercial district and an old, dented iron box. She locked the master title deed inside that box and made a solemn vow to her soul. She would never touch that land until Lily was fully grown and educated. She packed their few remaining clothes and moved into a tiny, damp brick room in the industrial outskirts. She chose an honest, Ziba Bosoi living, and letting los from the streets to put Lily through school. She became a ghost in the very city her family helped build. And for 10 years, she pulled a heavy wooden cart through the freezing rain and the blistering summer heat, enduring the blind arrogance of a world that only sees the clothes a person wears. Step inside the heavy glass doors of the aurum, and the harsh reality of the outside world instantly evaporates. Here, luxury is not just a word, it is an oppressive, engineered atmosphere where the top 0.1% come to isolate themselves from the rest of humanity. Sagrada Familia. Every detail in this dining room is a silent declaration of immense wealth and power. Sir, the air is lightly scented with imported lavender and expensive white truffles, erasing any trace of the city's urban smog. Richard walks through this space like a monarch, inspecting a conquered territory. He adjusts his solid gold cufflinks, his eyes scanning the tables with the cold, calculating precision of a laser. Richard, a restaurant is not a place that serves food. It's a laboratory of social climbing. He trains his waiting staff to serve with a submissive bow, to speak only in muted whispers, to treat the rich like gods walking among mortals. But his obsession with perfection has a dark, ascetic twin, an absolute, venomous hatred for anyone he deems beneath his self-imposed social standing. Richard stands near the marble pillars, checking a leather-bound binder containing the evening's guest list. The names listed inside represent the absolute apex of the city's political and commercial elite. Ministers, real estate barons, and corporate heirs are all scheduled to arrive for private dinners. A single mistake tonight could ruin his carefully polished reputation, and Richard has no intention of letting that happen. He turns his gaze toward the back kitchen doors, his jaw clenching with sudden irritation. His mind immediately focuses on Lily, La Lizzie, quiet, 20-year-old province girl who was recently hired as a kitchen helper and dishwasher. To Richard, Lily is a blemish on his perfect canvas, a reminder of the lower class he has spent his entire life trying to escape and forget. He pushes open the heavy stainless steel doors of the back kitchen. Della, stepping from the quiet luxury of the dining room into the humid, chaotic heat of the washing area. The sound of clinking silverware and rushing water fills the damp air. Lily is standing over a deep industrial sink, her slender arm soaked in thick soapy water, her face pale and glistening with sweat from 6 hours of unceasing, brutal labor. Richard slams his leather binder onto the steel prep table, a loud metallic crack making Lily jump in fear. He steps into her personal space, his towering posture casting a dark shadow over her small, exhausted frame. Look at these champagne flutes. Lily. He reaches into a wooden rack in La Sagrada Familia, pulling out a crystal glass and holding it up to the harsh fluorescent light. I can see a faint, pathetic smudge right here on the rim. Do you have any idea who is drinking from these glasses tonight? The Minister of Commerce is hosting a private, closed-door dinner in our primary VIP suite. Then, you expect me to serve him a vintage Cristal champagne in a glass polished by your clumsy, incompetent, provincial hands. Lily keeps her head bowed low, her eyes fixed on the soapy water, her voice trembling but incredibly polite. I am deeply sorry, Mr. Richard. Lea, Sagrada Familia, I have been washing and polishing continuously since 3 o'clock this afternoon without a single break. My hands are shaking from the cold water, but I will wipe them down and double polish the entire rack immediately. Richard leans in even closer, his voice dropping to a low, venomous hiss that cuts deeper than any physical blow. Don't you dare use your pathetic country background as an excuse in my kitchen. You. People from the outer provinces come to this city thinking that simple, mindless, hard work is enough to survive among the elite. You lack elegance, Dia. You lack class, and you completely lack the basic understanding of refinement. The only reason I haven't thrown you out into the alley yet is because no one else is desperate enough to accept the miserable, bottom-tier wage you take. Keep your mouth shut, do your job, and make sure these glasses are flawless. If I see a single speck of dust on the silver, or a single fingerprint on the crystal, you will be on the street before the sun goes down. I will ensure you never get a job in this city again. The dinner rush peaks at 8 o'clock. Zaurum, turning the main kitchen of the Aurum into a frantic, roaring furnace of high-stress culinary production. Orders are shouted across the line. Heavy, copper pans blaze with sudden bursts of fire. The chefs move with frantic, aggressive speed. Lily is caught in the middle of this corporate storm, body aching with absolute exhaustion. Her asthma has been acting up due to the thick, heavy steam and the chemical cleaning agents in the air, making every breath a painful, burning struggle. Reaches into her pocket, searching for her inhaler, but her heart drops into her stomach as she realizes she left it sitting on the wooden kitchen table in her tiny rented room. She tries to suppress her coughing, knowing that if Richard hears her say, he will use it as another excuse to humiliate her in front of the entire staff. A senior line cook slams a massive, heavy tray, loaded with imported Austrian porcelain plates, onto her station. Get these out to the secondary staging area now, Lily, he shouts over the roar of the exhaust fans. They need to be lined up for the main course immediately. Don't stall the line. Lily nods silently, lifting the heavy tray with her trembling, wet hands. La Familia. The porcelain platters are worth thousands of dollars, painted and delicate. As she navigates the narrow, sleek corridor, leading toward the dining room doors. The chaos of the kitchen catches up to her. At a rushing line cook, carrying a pot of boiling pasta water, John Sagrada Familia. The corner, too quickly, and shoves his shoulder heavily against her arm. A sudden, violent impact throws Lily completely off balance. Sagrada Familia. Her wet gloves lose their friction against the smooth silver surface of the tray. Time seems to slow down into a horrifying, agonizing nightmare. The tray tilts, and an exquisite, gold-rimmed imperial porcelain platter slips from the edge. It hits the hard ceramic amp tile floor with a loud, echoing crash that shatters the dense noise of the kitchen line, breaking into dozens of sharp, ill-carrying shards. The entire kitchen instantly goes dead, silent. The chefs stop staring. The expeditor stops shouting orders. Every eye turns toward Lily, who is already dropping to her knees in absolute terror. La Sagrada Familia. Richard appears from the shadows of the office doorway like a predator that has been patiently waiting for its prey to trip. His face is completely contorted in a mixture of theatrical rage and dark satisfaction. Stop. No one move and a single inch. Richard's voice booms through the kitchen, still freezing the air. Lily's hands are shaking violently as she frantically tries to gather the sharp porcelain pieces, a shard cutting into her index finger, drawing a bright line of crimson blood. I am so incredibly sorry, Mr. Richard. It was an absolute accident. Someone bumped into me from behind. I lost my footing. Please, I will pay for the damage. You can deduct it from my wages. Just please don't fire me. Richard steps forward, his expensive leather shoe coming down hard on a large piece of porcelain right next to her hand, narrowly missing her bleeding fingers. Pay for it? With what money? Pathetic, broke peasant. That is an authentic imperial piece, made, hand-painted, and imported directly from the royal workshops of Austria. That single plate costs more than 6 full months of your miserable, low-class salary. He reaches down to Sagrada, grabbing her roughly by the stiff collar of her uniform, forcing her to stand up and face the entire kitchen staff, who look on with silent, uncomfortable fear. Look at you, a useless, clumsy, brainless piece of provincial garbage. As of this moment, Delia, you will not receive a single penny of your salary for the next half year to cover the cost of your stupidity. Right now, before you do another second of work, you will drop to your knees on this very floor and apologize to every single chef in this room for bringing your filthy, low-class incompetence into my pristine establishment. While Lily is standing there, tears of absolute humiliation streaming down her pale face. The outer glass doors of the autumn tell a different story. Outside, the evening air is bitter, freezing, and a cold drizzle is beginning to slick the city streets. An old woman pulls a heavy, creaking wooden cart packed with flattened cardboard boxes and empty aluminum cans past the grand, brightly lit entrance of the restaurant. This is Martha Vance, Lily's grandmother. Elle. Martha had returned to their tiny room after a 12-mile walk through the slums, only to find Lily's asthma inhaler sitting on the table. Oh, knowing her granddaughter's life depended on that small piece of plastic during high-stress shifts, La Familia, Martha's heart had filled with an agonizing, eternal terror. She didn't choose to rest. She didn't stop to eat. She immediately pushed her heavy cart all the way to the commercial district, her old boots soaked through with icy water. She parks her cart near a distant lamppost, carefully smoothing down her patched, faded canvas jacket. She walks toward the side entrance of the massive luxury plaza, holding a small, clean plastic bag containing the medicine. She doesn't want to cause trouble. She doesn't want to embarrass her beautiful, hard-working granddaughter. She only wants to quietly hand the inhaler to a security guard and return to her quiet world of scrap. The universe has already set a trap. The door she opens, and the door leads directly into the secondary dining room of the elite. Martha Vance steps carefully into the secondary dining room of the Orum, her worn boots leaving light, damp tracks on the polished Carrara marble floor. She holds the small plastic bag containing Lily's asthma inhaler tightly in her trembling, uncalloused fingers. Richard stops dead in his tracks as he storms out of the kitchen, his eyes widening in absolute disgust as he spots the old woman standing near the plush velvet curtains. What is this abomination? Security. Why is there a disgusting, homeless hack standing in the middle of my luxury dining room? Richard's voice booms across the room, instantly shattering the quiet conversations of the elite diners. Martha Vance keeps her head down, bowing her caved-in shoulders slightly, her voice remaining incredibly polite, calm, and dignified despite the harsh words. Good evening, sir. I apologize deeply for entering through this doorway without permission. I am Lily's grandmother from the kitchen. She forgot her medical inhaler on the table this morning, and she desperately needs it for her breathing during the double shift. We leave this building immediately if you could just pass this small bag to her. Richard laughs out loud. A cold, theatrical sound designed to draw the attention of every wealthy patron in the room. Lily's grandmother. So the gutter rat breeds more gutter rats. Look at you, old witch. You smell like a rotting landfill and wet cardboard. You bring your flea-ridden, Rada Familia, ragged clothes into a Michelin-starred restaurant where people pay thousands of dollars for a clean, elite atmosphere. You think you can just wander into my establishment whenever you want because you're useless. Clumsy granddaughter washes dishes in the back. Lily runs through the kitchen doors, hearing the commotion, Solaya, and freezes when she sees her grandmother being publicly reeled by Richard in front of 50 wealthy patrons. Grandma, what are you doing here? Lily gasps, running forward to stand between Richard and Martha, her chest heaving as she tries to breathe. Please, Mr. Richard, I beg you, don't speak to her like that. She is old, she is sick. She only came here to bring my medicine because she cares about me. I will take her away right now. We will leave through the back alley. Yeah, just please stop. Richard smiles cruelly, his eyes flashing as he sees an opportunity for a grand public display of absolute managerial authority. Oh, you want to take her away now? Before I clean this entire room of the way he and filth you both brought into my presence. Later, bring me that deep bowl of wild mushroom truffle soup from table 9. A guest returned it because it wasn't burning hot. Let's see if these street beggars appreciate fine dining. A terrified waiter hands Richard a heavy porcelain bowl filled to the brim with thick, dark mushroom soup that is still steaming. Richard steps forward with a sinister smirk. Lily tries to block him with her own body, but Richard roughly shoves the exhausted girl aside, causing her to crash hard against a silver serving cart. Then Minauso deliberately and slowly tips the heavy bowl directly over Martha's head and shoulders. A heavy, wet splat echoes through the silent dining room as the thick, dark brown liquid pours over Martha's gray hair, soaking into her faded jacket and cascading down her back. There, old hag. Now you have been baptized by the Aurum's finest culinary creation. Consider it a luxury gift from my personal generosity. Now, grab your trash-picking cart and get the hell out of my sight before I have the police arrest you both for trespassing, corporate sabotage, and assault. La familia. The entire dining room goes dead silent as the soup drips onto the spotless white floor. Some elite guests turn away in mild discomfort, but none step forward to help. To them, an old scrap picker is just an invisible ghost, a subhuman entity that does not belong in their world. Martha Vance stands perfectly still under the weight of the burning soup. She does not cry. She does not scream. Slowly, she lifts her caved-in shoulders. Her spine straightens completely, and her head rises. Her eyes, which were once soft with grandmotherly concern, suddenly lock onto Richard with a cold, terrifying, majestic stillness that makes the general manager's laughter freeze instantly in his throat. The posture of a defeated, broken old woman vanishes from Martha Vance in a single heartbeat. Her breathing becomes deep, steady, and unbothered by the thick liquid dripping from her chin. She looks around the grand dining room, her sharp eyes memorizing the faces of every single wealthy patron who watched her humiliation and chose to remain silent. Richard Harrison. Martha speaks, her voice low, perfectly modulated, sounding incredibly educated, clearly striking out the frantic atmosphere. That is the exact name printed on your gold manager badge. Correct. Richard steps back slightly, half unnerved by the sudden, freezing authority in her tone. He quickly tightens his aggressive mask. Yeah, that's my name, Old Witch. What are you going to do about it? Ele, are you going to sue me with your non-existent money? Or complain to the garbage department Martha calmly reaches into the deep, dry inner pocket of her stained canvas jacket. She pulls out a small, old-fashioned Nokia button phone that looks ancient, but has a bright, illuminated screen. She presses a single key, revealing a live, high-definition audio stream application connected directly to an encrypted cloud server. Arthur, did your team capture everything on the network? Martha. Martha speaks clearly into the tiny microphone of the phone. Every single word. Adam Vance. Crisp, professional, booming voice responds through the small speaker with absolute, terrifying authority. Live audio is crystal clear. Video backup from the plaza's main security node has been secured. Del Viejo. And the automated legal backup has already replicated the data to 4 separate high court servers. Sagrada Familia. Our entire corporate legal team is standing by for your direct command. Richard scoffs, pushing his hands into his pockets. Though a heavy drop of cold sweat forms near his temple. What kind of pathetic, childish game is this? Playing a fake voice recording from a cheap phone to scare a professional manager? Plaza, security, throw these 2 roaches into the dumpster alley right now. La Familia. From a dark, secluded corner table near the back of the restaurant, a man in an immaculate navy blue, bespoke suit stands up. He adjusts his silk tie and walks forward. His expression colder than a winter grave. This is Arthur Pendleton, senior executive trustee of the Apex Heritage Realty Group, the largest commercial land development conglomerate in the entire country. There is absolutely no need for security Sovetti to move a single inch, Richard. Arthur says, his voice cutting through the space like a razor blade. Because the only person leaving this multi-million-dollar building tonight in chains is you. Richard's face turns instantly pale as his brain recognizes the powerful man walking toward him. Mr. Pendleton. See. Richard stammers, his hands trembling as he drops his binder. I am so deeply sorry you had to witness this disgusting, low-class display. I was just personally removing this street garbage so it wouldn't ruin your luxury dining experience. Please, allow me to immediately move you to our private VIP Imperial Suite with our compliments. Alpha. Arthur Pendleton completely ignores Richard's extended hand, walking straight past the manager. He stops in front of the soup-stained Martha Vance and bows deeply, a full 90-degree angle of absolute submission. Madam Vance, I am deeply, profoundly sorry for this nightmare. Arthur says, his voice shaking with genuine fear and respect. I arrived at the plaza the exact minute I received your automated text message, but I was too slow to prevent this pathetic beast from touching your person. Please, forgive my lack of speed and allow me to handle this trash for you. The entire dining room gasps in unison as chairs scrape against the floor. Richard's knees visibly tremble, his breath catching in his throat. Arthur Pendleton, a kingmaker who decides which multi-million-dollar luxury brands get tenancies in the city's premier commercial districts, LA Sagrada Familia is bowing like a low servant before an old woman who smells of plastic bottles and wet soup. The frozen glass doors of the room are violently thrown open by two burly security officers in black tactical suits. No Sang, walking through the threshold, is a legendary figure in the national economy. Charles Sterling, a billionaire founder and chairman of the Sterling Global Empire. His face is a tight mask of pure, unadulterated rage as his eyes sweep across the opulent room. The ambient classical music completely dies out. The wealthy guests, not wealthy, lower their cutlery in absolute terror. Charles Sterling storms into the primary dining room, his leather boots clicking sharply against the cold marble floor. His gaze instantly locks onto the hunched, fragile figure of Martha Vance, who is covered from head to toe in thick, dripping mushroom soup. Who did this to her? Charles's voice roars through the luxury restaurant, Samarbodia, shaking the heavy crystal chandeliers hanging from the ceiling. Who in this room dare touch my sister, Martha? Richard's face turns an unnatural shade of ghostly white as his knees begin to visibly tremble. He tries to force a polite, submissive smile onto his lips. His voice squeaks under the immense pressure. Mr. Sterling said, "It's an absolute honor to welcome you to our establishment tonight. I apologize deeply for this chaotic and disgusting display. In front of you, this old woman is a vagrant and a simple trash picker from the slums who infiltrated our private dining room. Sira, she was threatening our staff and making a mess. So, I was just personally removing the garbage, so it wouldn't ruin your luxury experience. Please allow me to immediately move you and your guests to our private imperial suite." Charles Sterling does not let the general manager finish his sentence. He steps forward with blinding speed and delivers a thunderous, open-handed slap across Richard's face. Say, a massive, echoing crack shatters the silence of the restaurant as Richard is sent crashing violently onto the hard marble floor. He groans in intense pain, holding his bleeding lip, his perfect hair falling wildly over his eyes. "You arrogant, worthless piece of trash. Liar!" Charles roars, kneeling down directly in the puddle of soup to wrap his expensive wool coat around Martha's shivering shoulders. "Sister Martha, I am so deeply, profoundly sorry for this nightmare. 20 years ago, when my first company went completely bankrupt, and I was standing on the edge of a bridge, ready to end my life, you were the only one who believed in me. You gave me the seed capital from your own family fund, without asking for a single share or a single penny in return. You saved my life. You saved my family. And you built the foundation of the entire Sterling Empire. When your family faced that structural disaster 10 years ago, disappeared into the slums to protect your granddaughter from the toxic vultures of high society. I have spent a decade searching every corner of this country for you. And to find you like this wretched house of cards, being humiliated by a pathetic servant. Arthur Vance places a gentle, soup-stained hand on Charles's trembling arm, her expression remaining completely calm and majestic. Stand up, Charles. A king does not kneel in a house made of cheap gold foil. I am perfectly fine. Soup was a bit cold. The dark lesson it just taught everyone in this room is worth more than diamonds. Richard Harrison crawls backward like a terrified insect. Idioso. His expensive trousers soaking up the dirty water on the floor. The elite diners whisper frantically in the background, realizing they have just witnessed the ultimate degradation of a billionaire supreme benefactor. No, this is impossible. This cannot be real. Richard whines, his voice cracking with absolute panic. She is just an old scrap picker. Same. I see her pulling a wooden cart through the mud every single day. She lives in a broken brick room in the outer slums. She has no money. She has no power. Arthur Pendleton steps forward, opening a thick leather briefcase handed to him by a personal bodyguard. He pulls out a heavy legal folder stamped with an official, Golden State Trust seal. Silence, you arrogant, blind fool. Arthur's voice cuts through Richard's, whimpering like an iron blade. Let me educate your pathetic mind on the true reality of your social standing. This entire luxury plaza complex, 5-star boutique tower, and the 200 acres of prime commercial land beneath this restaurant do not belong to the city council. They do not belong to our real estate investment group or any conglomerate you serve. The Apex Group only manages this property under a highly restricted 99-year land lease. Arthur holds up the master title deed, the camera tracking the bold calligraphy at the top of the paper. Sole and absolute ogre of the business district, Central Plaza Trust, Martha Vance. 10 years ago, when Madame Vance settled her family's structural debts, she intentionally placed this prime asset into an anonymous, closed private trust to ensure Lily's future security. The legal owner of the Aurum restaurant, who happens to be your employer, pays $400,000 a month in pure rent directly into Martha's trust fund. Richard, you are a low-level employee of a tenant who pays rent to the very woman you just covered in boiling mushroom soup. Richard's eyes widen to the size of saucers, his breath completely stopping as the cold truth drops on his skull. No, please God, no. He throws himself forward onto his stomach, the crawling through the puddle of soup to reach Martha's worn boots. Madame Vance, please. I didn't know. I swear on my life, I didn't know who you were. If I had any idea you owned the land, I would have crawled on my knees to the edge of the street to welcome you inside. Please don't destroy my life. I worked 15 brutal years to climb out of poverty and become the general manager here. Martha Vance looks down at him. Her eyes fill with profound, cold pity completely empty of anger. That is the absolute tragedy of your tiny life, Richard. You only respect the coat a person wears, never the human being living inside it. If I were a real, defenseless old woman, with nothing but trash in my wooden cart, La Familia, I would currently be lying in a dark alley, freezing and burned, with no one to save me. Your apology tonight is not born of genuine repentance. It's born of absolute terror for your own survival. That is exactly why your words are entirely worthless to me. The owner of the Aurum, Mr. Henderson, arrives, running into the secondary dining room, his face drenched in cold sweat, his expensive silk tuxedo completely ruined by his frantic movement. He had received an automated emergency alert from Arthur Pendleton's corporate security node, and he knew his multi-million-dollar empire was standing on the edge of a cliff. He takes one look at the scene, sees the soup dripping from Martha Vance's gray hair, and instantly drops to his knees on the wet marble, right next to the whimpering manager. Madam Vance, please, I beg for your infinite mercy. Mr. Henderson cries out, La Sagrada Familia, his hands shaking violently as he presses them against the floor. I had absolutely no idea this heartless monster was behaving like this behind my back. I swear it to you. I am the chief owner of the Aurum franchise, and I always instructed my operational staff to be courteous, respectful, and open to every citizen. Martha Vance slowly turns her gaze toward Arthur Pendleton, completely ignoring the owner's pathetic, desperate wailing. Arthur, look into the master commercial land lease agreement we signed 10 years ago when the Plaza Trust was established. Martha says, her voice echoing with a chilling, imperial stillness that freezes the blood of every elite diner in the room. Section 9, Clause 4, regarding the moral conduct and the reputational protection of the land's historic heritage. What exactly does it state for a situation like this? Arthur Pendleton steps forward, adjusting his luxury glasses, his voice cutting through the space like a cold steel blade. He states with absolute legal clarity that if the tenant or any registered corporate representative of the tenant engages in egregious, criminal, or inhumane behavior on the premises that tarnishes the ethical values of the Vance Trust, the landlord reserves the absolute, non-negotiable right to terminate the lease immediately, with zero financial compensation and a strict 24-hour eviction notice. Martha Vance nods her head once, her expression as unbothered as stone. Execute the clause immediately. Arthur, as of this exact second, a commercial lease for the Aurum is permanently, legally revoked. You have exactly 24 hours to pack your crystal chandeliers, or your Austrian porcelain, and your gold foil decorations. Mr. Henderson, this restaurant is closed forever. Mr. Henderson gasps, Celia, his face turning completely gray as his entire life's work vanishes into thin air with a single sentence. So, he turns his head toward Richard, his eyes bloodshot with pure, blinding hatred. You absolute animal. You destroyed my entire life's work. Mr. Henderson screams in absolute agony, suddenly throwing his entire body weight forward, slamming his fists directly into Richard's face on the marble floor. A $50 million investment, Completely gone because of your goddamn blind arrogance. Charles Sterling steps forward, waving his hand coldly to his personal tactical bodyguards. Separate them immediately, Ley Sagrada Familia, and ensure the Metropolitan Police arrive at the front entrance within 3 minutes. I am personally filing official criminal charges against Richard Harrison for aggravated assault, corporate harassment, and intentional bodily battery against Madame Vance. Furthermore, I am activating a full hostile financial audit on Richard's past operational management